7 coups de lexivie.
So how are you, sis? How are you?
Beloved, I am. Okay. I'm feeling magical. I'm feeling mystical. I'm feeling like a badass. Like I'm so excited to talk to you.
Well, you have no
I'm
idea.
pregnant.
I actually was thinking last night, the first time that I met you, because it was in person. This is pre-COVID, y'all. And
Yeah.
you are just a light. I remember,
Aw.
I think there was like a brunch or some kind of meetup that involved food and Black women.
Yeah. I think there was a brunch somewhere and then someone
Brunch?
did like the decor, one of
Yes,
our siblings.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
And you are just a light. And for folks who
Thank
don't
you.
know, you are actually quite tall, or I am actually quite short, or it's a mix of both. So not only
Both,
are
right.
you a not only are you a
You could
light,
be both, meet in the middle, dance all night.
exactly,
Okay.
but you have a height, and then there's heels. So it's like even if you
Yeah.
weren't energetically a light, you are seen. And I
Yeah,
remember you
I'm
walked in and it was
5'10".
like, oh, and I was like,
Mhm.
yeah, that's the one. That's the
Thank
one.
you. So I was 5'8" in 6th grade. I was taller than some of my teachers and definitely all of the boys until about like 7th, 8th grade.
How
Mhm.
tall are your parents? Where are we getting this height
No,
from?
I think it comes from my maternal grandmother. So shout out to Norma
Mm,
Yvonne Osborne, Ashe, my
okay.
namesake and my maternal grandmother. When I look at photos of her from my childhood, let me tell you, not a hair out of place. Okay, stockings, okay, shoes, coats, hats,
Mm.
and I'm like, yeah, I'm hers. I belong to you,
Mm.
absolutely.
So before we get started, what's in your coffee cup? What are you drinking with us today?
Okay, friends. So I'm in my third eye moment. I'm
Okay.
drinking some alkaline water
Mm, okay.
out of a
Okay.
wine glass, out of a champagne flute, excuse me,
Yes.
because everything is elevated and luxurious over here, even
Mm.
hydration.
Amen.
Period.
Amen.
What's in
Amen.
yours?
I am drinking actual coffee
Okay.
with a hazelnut creamer with one of my favorite cups that I always have at work. Says per my last
What is it?
email. It says per my last email. Yes.
Because I have to tell you, Negroes again.
When COVID hit and we're now all working from home, I started
Mm,
collecting, I call them my petty ass mug collection.
I love it.
Because for whatever reason, many times, especially as a dark skinned Black woman in the corporate world, when I say
Hmm.
things, people don't hear them. So I found very fun, creative, and petty ways to get my messages across sometimes.
Clearly, succinctly, expeditiously. I know that's
Like if
right.
you don't believe the words out of my mouth or the
Right.
words written in the email,
And if you're going to force me to be on camera during this meeting, let me give you this mug.
I also have another mug with my name spelled on it because many people forget how to
Mm.
spell names, which are actually in the email. That's
Hello,
one
in
of
the signature,
the
in
signature.
the email address.
How you spell it incorrectly. Okay. But okay. So yes.
Lazy.
It's just inappropriate. But
It
where
is.
are your people from?
So my
You
mom
can't-
was born on the island of Barbados. My dad is from Guyana in South America. Ancestrally, we're from Sierra Leone on my mom's side. I'm from the
Mm,
north, the Timni
mm,
people. And on
mhm,
my dad's side, we're from Angola,
mm. So Barbados, which is
Barbados.
also the land of Riri.
And is that's my cousin. Hey, Robin Fenty.
Don't play her. Don't play her.
Wait, but can we talk about this? This is a social media post in the making.
Hmm.
You got Rihanna.
Mm-hmm.
You got Audre Lorde. You
Yes.
got Shirley Chisholm.
Yep.
And you got LaVon Briggs. Okay?
Yes.
It's a Bayesian quadrant of deliciousness. I just want to let y'all know they're Bayesian. Thank you.
Don't play Barbados. Don't. And
Don't
also,
play with us.
I do want to honor Barbados has some really good food that people are
Mm-hmm.
not talking about. I think that we talk about the Caribbean and we talk about the islands.
Mm-hmm.
Food, Jamaica gets a lot of love.
Jamaica,
And
Trinidad,
Trinidad
yeah.
gets a lot of love,
And
When
rightfully so.
girl, when you
Also,
put Black folks and people of India and mix the food together, because that all that
mm-hmm.
Trinidad is a magic. So shout out to
Yep.
Trinidad.
Shout out to
But y'all
Trinidad.
Asians don't get enough love for your plate.
We don't, the Guyanese too. We have African, Chinese, and Indian
Yes.
influence in our cooking.
Yes.
So like Guyanese Chinese food, the fried chicken, sorry to these vegans, and the fried rice, babes. You be like, am I in Guyana? Am I in China? What's going on? I love it. I love my blend.
I love that. I love that for you.
Thank
So
you.
you are phenomenal. You've worked in the corporate space.
Mm-hmm.
You may or may not have an Emmy that is currently behind you with some Mardi Gras beads. I mean, there she is.
With her Mardi Gras beads, yes.
With her Mardi Gras beads. I want to talk to you today about codependency. Whoa. And I remember when we were going back and forth on email what we were going to talk about, and then you popped out and you said, we're going to talk about codependency. And I said, oh, yeah. You just read me for filth. And here's why. I am a recovered codependent individual.
Come on.
Did not know that I was codependent. I always strive to be this independent person. And I do have a lot of independent layers, but I didn't realize until I started strategically dating that I have some codependencies that I needed to navigate, figure out, and let go with ancestry. So,
wait, hold on. Before we get into it, what does strategically dating mean? Because maybe I need to strategically date.
So, I think that dating is interesting. As a person who is married, and thank you, Lord, because I hear these streets are a mess.
Okay?
I hear these streets are a mess. And every time that I talk to a friend of mine who's single or is dating, I will go home to my husband and I'll be like, look, I know you mad at me from like 3 hours ago, but we're going to have to work it out because I'm not going back there.
Okay. What you want? You want a back rub? You want a slap? What we doing?
We going to have to figure this out.
Here.
So in my late 20s, I decided that I'm not trying to get married or get a life partner today, but I want to strategically date. So therefore, I'm not about to go on a date and within 15 minutes, this person says something to me that does not align with my value. It doesn't have to be a bad thing.
Like my favorite book is 48 Laws of Power.
You know what I'm saying? And then leave the restaurant, sis.
Leave
the coffee shop or the ice cream parlor and be like, but there's other things. No, if we start off and as soon as I see that red flag, or I always tell people green flags that just don't align with me. Because just because it's not a bad thing does not mean it's my thing. Right?
That's good.
So a good example, I remember I went on this date with this guy, went out to tacos and was a really great taco restaurant. And he was a fabulous human being. Mm-hmm. And then he told me that his dream is to live on a country farm.
Oh, dear.
In the middle of nowhere in America.
Oh, dear.
And if you know me, I don't like dirt. Lexi, before I was strategically dating, would have been like, but he's a great guy. And for the record, he was a great guy. And I won't say his name. I don't want to, but like, he's a wonderful human being.
Sure.
When I started strategically dating, I said, I don't care how wonderful you are.
Right.
This is not a match make because you want to have a life that there is no way me in my heels will want.
Correct.
So we can be friends. I can give you numbers to friends of mine that may want that as well. Because again, you're a wonderful human being. I want to see you succeed on your dirty farm.
I'm going to clap for you from afar.
Yes. I don't want to be there though.
Yeah. Right? I don't want you thanking me during your acceptance speech.
Exactly. Right. And so that's what I call
fair. Yeah, that resonates.
Like knowing yourself and being like, nah. And again, pre-strategically dating, I would have found every reason why to go on a second date, a third date. 6 months from now, we're dating. And now he's like, why don't you want to go to the farm with me? And I'm like, and then it becomes this huge thing about how I lied about who I was. And we'll be in couples counseling. And I'll be like, I never said I liked the farm. Then why am I here?
Yeah.
Why am I here?
Pourquoi? Yeah, I get that. And I feel like had I strategically dated, I never would have gotten married the first time because I ended up in a relationship with an F-boy and didn't know it and didn't listen to my intuition. But I feel like codependency was also a part of it because I met this man who I thought was, good on paper and he just needs a little work. So let me just step in, let me fix him, let me rescue, let me save, which is what codependency is.
Yep.
And child, less than 2 years in, I was like, nah, I'm out. Deuces. So I'm excited to see who I attract now that I'm on the other side of this, now that I too am a recovered codependent, and people calling me mean and selfish and all kinds of stuff. We'll get into why a little later. But I'm also going to be 42 this summer. And I just feel like after 40, there is just this magical, mystical portal that opens to you. And you're like, babes, if it ain't serving me, if it ain't serving the goddess, babes, it has no room in my queendom. So I'm excited to chat with you about this because I do know that this will be a helpful conversation for your listeners.
So how do you define codependency?
So I'm going to use Psychology Today's definition. Okay. They define codependency as a dysfunctional relationship dynamic where one person assumes the role of the giver, sacrificing their own needs and well-being for the sake of the other, the taker. Now, it's important to note that the bond in question doesn't have to be romantic. It can occur just as easily between parent and child, friends, and family members. So when people think, y'all may not see Lexi, but her eyes are real big.
Because I think it's poignant. Because we were going to talk about it. It's not just about love. How many codependent parent and child relationships?
Babes, I actually think family, particularly immigrant families and very conservative churches, foster codependency in us, right? So when people hear codependency, they often tend to think of neediness or getting attached very easily. But codependency has over 100 different expressions, and it tends to show itself as this need or desire to rescue people, to fix people, to save people. It shows up in you seeing somebody going through something. They don't come to you, but you take it upon yourself to step in, use your time, energy, money, resources to alleviate whatever they got going on. They end up in a better situation. You're worse off. They don't say thank you, and now you resent them for it, but they never asked for your help in the first place.
It's giving Captain Save-A-Ho. That's what the streets call it.
That's it's giving Captain Codependent. That's what it's giving. And I'm so glad that you said that, because one of my favorite artists, Mayada, she has a song called R.I.P. Captain Save-A-Ho. And she says, I can't save nobody. I put my cape down, sorry. I'm going to need some boundaries because I'm keeping my peace.
So what's the difference between codependency, which is not cute, and we should not be doing that.
Correct.
And authentically and genuinely helping someone you care about?
Here's the major key with codependency. When you are trying to manipulate a situation by using your thought process and what you would do, right? Everyone has their own process. And I know this is going to be hard for a lot of Black and brown folks and immigrant folks to hear, but you are not responsible for any other grown person's emotions or saving. Now, this doesn't mean that you can't check in on people. This doesn't mean that you become really selfish and self-centered, but you cannot try to make it your mission to fix everyone else's problems. Because oftentimes you rushing to try to save someone else is because you're not willing to do the work to save yourself.
Oh. So what you're saying is that oftentimes people being codependent is almost like a security blanket of them not dealing with their own stuff that they know they need to deal with.
Right,
but
right.
Let me take the time to deal with this and deprioritize my stuff.
That can be one reason. Another thing is that we don't feel worthy of love unless we are serving other people. Or maybe people raise us to think that unless we were doing for them or taking care of them, some of us were children caring for grown people, which never should have been the dynamic. And so you think that by serving, I'm expressing my value in the world, when, babes, your value is inherent because you're a child of God or whatever you believe in, right? Because you were born, you are worthy of love and care. You don't have to do, be, achieve, provide in order to be worthy of care. But because so many people have conditional affection, right? They feel like, if I don't do this, then I won't be loved. And who doesn't want to be loved?
I have felt this a lot in a lot of my relationships. Again, pre-strategic dating. Where I felt as though if I continue to give, then they will love me.
Ciao.
or they'll love me more, or they will start showing me love in a way that I receive it. Right? And I had to learn many times the hard way. And let's take love out of it, because I think that many times people assume romantic. I'm talking about family. I'm talking about friends. I'm talking about work relationships. That I had to learn that I have to show up as my best self. And the people that receive that and give that back are the people that I need to be around. And the people that don't, I can respectfully walk away from, and that's okay. And I think that's hard too.
It is, because we all want to be loved. We all want to be in relationship with people who see us and affirm us and celebrate us. And oftentimes that's our family or our relatives, but sometimes it's not. Especially when you are the one who is deeply committed to your healing journey, your healing is going to isolate you from a lot of people, maybe people whose last name you share, maybe people, you've been in the sandbox with them when y'all were 3, you crossed with them in undergrad, they're your comrade in the office space. But once you start to really let go of the idea that I need to rescue, fix, save everybody else, and you start turning that attention inward, oh, babes, the blockages that are dissolved, right? The beauty that is unleashed, the expansion, the ascension that comes. And there are going to be people who are going to be like, wait, what you mean I can't use you whenever I want? What you mean you're not going to rescue me, fix me from my lack of wisdom or discipline? And they're not going to like that. So the people pleasing aspect goes hand in hand with healing your codependency. You have to learn to let go of people pleasing too.
I love what you said about as your healing journey progresses, the number of people in your life gets smaller. Because I always tell people I have never felt so lonely in my life than when I started really healing. And there is, I'm not going to lie, there is this transition phase as you heal where it gets really lonely at the top, because you're going to have to cycle out the people and get used to you. Yeah. But tell me about that for you. How was that for you?
The conversations are different when you're healing. I know that there's this phrase that we hear, misery loves company. And there are some people who just want to be seen. And so that's why these people call you when they want to vent. That's why some people are using you as their personal trash disposal, because they know you're going to listen. Like, babes, you need to get in therapy or get a journal or voice memo yourself, right? Because that's not my role in your life. We all want to be seen. We all want to be heard. And so the thing is, the conversations change. Your boundaries, right, that you implement and enforce, because a boundary without enforcement, and I know that language is a little violent, it's simply a wish. You have to enforce your boundaries in order for them to work. They force people to change how they interact with you. If there are takers in your life and you're a giver, they're never going to stop to say, hey, I'm taking too much. They're never going to stop to say, hey, you're giving too much. They are going to take as much as you give. And sometimes what you don't even have to give, Praise the Lord. So for me, it's important to surround yourself with people who, one, know how to honor your boundaries. And that takes practice. When you can learn how to enforce a boundary and then someone respects it for the first time and someone adjusts how they interact with you because of your boundary, you're like, oh, wait, hold on. I matter. Yes, you matter, babe.
Powerful stuff. Because to this day, I remember the first time that I stepped to someone who's still in my life, who was very bad at not blessing my boundaries. But for the record, I was very bad at verbally communicating my boundaries. And I will never forget the first time that I sat down with them and I was like, this is not going to work the way this is happening. And this is why. And it was so freeing. I think the issue with boundaries is that we have not taught people how to verbalize them. We have not taught children how to verbalize them.
Come on.
Especially in Black and Brown communities and in immigrant communities.
Yeah.
Because and this is a very general statement, I'm from the American South. So growing up, there was no way that I was going to check my parents. Well, I'm grown and I'm not going to check my parents, right?
Right.
But I was not taught or raised to look at adults and say, hey, I don't like this. I was taught to receive what I was given and then figure out how to deal with it, slither around it, or navigate it. But there was no conversation around telling another adult, like, hey, can we talk about this situation? Or can we talk, but tell me more about that. How do we teach adults who were not taught as children how to verbalize and communicate?
Thank you so much for bringing that up, Lexi, because so much of what we go through as women and folks comes up in our childhood, in our girlhood, in our adolescence. And so when I think about children, I think about not forcing them to hug family members they don't want to hug, not forcing them to clean their plate. If they say they're full, right? And so we have to honor our inner child. We have to reparent our inner child. So whenever you have a desire that comes up, as long as it's ethical and it's not hurting nobody and it's healthy, babes, it is a need. And so what do I need right now? Do I need a nap? Do I need some water? Do I want to go ride a tricycle for adult? Like, whatever it is that you want to do, pay attention to that, because those desires and needs weren't met when you were a child. And that energy doesn't dissipate. It just shows up in another way. And so it comes up when, you're invited into an intimate relationship. It comes up when it's time for salary negotiations. It comes up when it's time to, tell that aunt who's being real nosy at the holiday dinner, like, too far. So I grew up with a mother who grew up hearing and being treated like children are to be seen and not heard. Yep. So she vowed when she had her children, she wasn't going to raise us like that. So I'd be running my mouth talking about all kinds of stuff and business and, liberation work. And she's like, I don't know why you be spilling your guts to the world. I was like, ma'am, it's your fault. Because you were like, what else? You had conversations with me. You wanted to know what was going on with me. So now that I'm telling you what's going on, don't run from what you done, ma'am.
You started it.
You started it. And so implementing boundaries, here's a great example. Let's say you're on the phone with someone, and this is typically someone who, when you hang up the phone, you feel really drained from that conversation. If they are talking about something that you have no interest in discussing, it could be gossip, it could be them venting about some situation that they just refuse to change. You are entitled to your peace. And so saying, hey, friend, really don't have the space for this right now. Like, if you keep talking about this, or if you keep talking to me this way, right? If someone's cussing at you or yelling or whatever, like, I'm going to hang up the phone. Now, it's not going to have the same Y2K effect when we have flip phones and you could clap it down. You know what I'm saying? It's like, boop, boop, boop.
And girl, I used to love a good clap. I used to love a good clap on my flip phone. Okay. I did.
But same thing, but saying, I'm going to end this call. And you are probably going to be freaked out. You're going to be scared. You're going to be like, oh my God, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? The worst that could happen is that they call you back and you don't have to answer. The worst that could happen is that they don't invite you to their birthday party. Okay, go spend that money on yourself. Right? So I think what we get to honor is that the fear of what's going to happen on the other side of, inviting people to bless our boundary. I like that language you gave us, is rejection. But if people reject you because you don't allow them to overstep your boundaries, are they really your people?
So let's take it a step further then. Because what about the people that we have to interact with that we know aren't our people, AKA the job? And as I tell people, there are many times in your work life how I define the job as in, this is work that you do to pay your bills. May or may not be your passion work, but you have to do this to pay your bills.
Sure.
And there's a lot of people at that place. And many times you don't find forever friends at work. You may get blessed and find a few, but the majority of folks that you interact with in capitalism are not people that you may or may not be like, let's go to brunch on Saturday, every Saturday, right? How do we verbalize boundaries in those settings where actually the response they give you could impact your check?
That's real.
Yeah. How do you do that? Because I had to learn that the hard way. Yeah.
Let me preface this by saying that I was a full-time entrepreneur from the fall of 2019 to January of 2024.
Okay.
And I was working primarily with Black folks, specifically Black women. So
Mm.
now that I'm back in corporate and I'm around a lot of white people, I'm like, oh, wow. Yeah, this is bad. So
You're like, woo!
like, oh, a lot of mercy. Jesus, God, get me back to the entrepreneurial life full time. But here's some things that I do. One, I look at these people as colleagues and not friends. Like you said, you might find a friend, but you don't. I do not look to colleagues for companionship, for affirmation, for a listening ear, a confidant. You know, HR will be like, oh, if you ever need anything, babes, don't believe the hype. Lies and deceit. Okay, you keep your running Google Doc of what's going on. You document everything, screen grabs and everything. But yeah, so that's the first thing. So I go in well loved. I go in spiritually nourished, right? Making sure that I'm prayed up, but also that like I spoke to my platonic life partner, that, you know, I had a self-pleasure session so that I feel easeful showing up to this space. So not looking at them as friends. Two, whenever I sense mess, I pull back. Here's why, because now I want to watch and see who's involved in this particular scenario. Because you will be surprised who stays silent and who starts to speak up, talking foolishness, depending on who is leading the scenario. So be mindful of who you can trust and who you can't trust, because that's going to help you. So if you're not coming into a space needing camaraderie and like, you're going to be better able to view who's in your space. And then the third thing is, babes, give it over to them. Have your emails where you suggest the best path forward. When people are disagreeing with you, when white men are talking over you, when they telling you this is undesirable, this is non-negotiable, da-da-da-da-da. Okay, well, when you figure out what this whole thing is going to be, please let me know. Because guarantee you the conversation is going to be, well, that's not really his job description. No. But for this project, it is. And when anybody tries to ask you about something that this white person is trying to take over, hey, please contact so-and-so. Here's something that I did. I put this white man and some other execs on an email alongside some contractors that I hired. That's another thing. If you don't have to touch the situation personally, hire somebody else to do it. If there's room in your budget, delegate.
Girl, you know, I love a good hire. I love a good hire. I'll be like, oh, I need to expand my team.
Okay. If there's room in your budget, hire a contractor so you don't have to interface with these people. So you put them all on the same page. And whenever the contractors try to contact you about this situation, that's beyond my scope of knowledge. Go back to this thread and post your question there. Protect your peace.
You know what I also do? And I'm going to preface this with, this can get you messed up.
Okay.
So check lost, or can 100% double your check. Okay. It's gone both ways for me, but I stand by it.
Okay.
I only work for people that I can be my most authentic corporate self, which is different than my most authentic self. And the reason why is that when people act a fool at work, or I have decided that I do not have the professional verbalism to check in, I go to my boss because they make more money than me. And the number of times that I've had a conversation with multiple bosses where I will just tell the truth. So and so said this, and then so said this, and then in my inside voice, I said this. But instead of saying that, because I have home training, I said I'm going to have to come talk to you. So now I'm talking to you, and I need you to write an email to let these people know that I'm not doing this. Blessings. Because you are in a higher tax bracket than me, and I have used all of my professional tools in my toolkit
Sure.
to handle this, and I cannot. And
that's fair.
And many times, the higher I get in my corporate career, it has worked because checking privilege, I'm able to decide who I want to work for. But in the beginning, it was hard because, you know, when you're younger in your career, you just got to work for whoever and just pray about it.
That's true too.
But making sure your boss always knows. I've had bosses that have acted a fool in meetings to people. And after the call, I have called them and I've just been like, yo, if you do that to me, it's going to be on popping on site. Like, it's going to be on popping on site. Because I'm just like, it's a learning opportunity for you.
I
You're not
love
gonna
that
talk
you
to
had
me
that
that way.
experience. I
Yeah.
love that you had that experience.
Yeah. But I hope that we all can have that experience in some capacity.
You know, Black people. No, I'm screaming. I'm thinking about something that you said earlier about healing, how it changes you, right? Like your makeup.
Mhm.
And I feel like as more and more Black women are healing, we're realizing that we don't necessarily want to chase like these stereotypical westernized capitalist
No,
goals and
no.
success. We're like, actually, I want a garden. Actually, I want to be topless on a beach eating fresh fruit. Like, actually, I want to take a nap. And so it your healing could very much affect your performance on the job because you're like, this shit don't matter. Like, I mean, even look around. The world is on fire. And these niggas trying to have small talk on Zoom. And you like, excuse me.
No,
Is
no,
this the Twilight Zone? What are
no.
we doing?
I was funny. I was just talking to a friend of mine yesterday who got laid off from a job. And for the record, people still getting laid off. It
Lord
is Hunger Games
Jesus.
out in these streets. And she was telling me that a lot of the jobs that are contacting her are not paying her her worth. And then we both had a moment of silence. And I said, but how much effort is the job?
Right.
And she said, what you mean? And I said, well,
Mhm.
the job has to pay you enough for you to live.
Right.
You make up that number in your head.
Yeah.
So say you need $10 a year to live, and I'm clearly being
I'm
very facetious,
screaming. Praise
right?
God.
And this job is like, I'm going to pay you 12, but the
Mhm.
other job that you got laid off from was going to pay you 20.
Yeah.
If they're only going to pay you 12, then they only get $12 a year worth of effort.
Babes, they get $6.
Do you know
Okay?
what I'm
Because
saying? Like, it's just
the bare
it,
minimum for Black women, brown women, and immigrants is in the stratosphere
you know
for
what I'm saying?
everyone else.
And she started laughing, and I was like, so I'm not saying take a job that is less than what you deserve, but I am saying is that if there's a job that comes up where you're like, wait a damn minute, I could do this in my sleep, and you are going to decrease my pay, but I could do this in my sleep. Then maybe I do have time to go to the beach and eat fresh mangoes, and maybe
Yeah.
that'll fuel me for a little bit while I figure it out. And I want that for everyone.
Yes.
Yes.
And that's another key. Okay. And I don't know if the employers are going to hear this episode, but I don't care. Listen, do the bare minimum and then do less than that, because what you think is the bare minimum, babes,
Is different.
it is, because let me tell you, I had a conversation with God about my role, and I was like, I put in my best for this project. Like, what are we doing? God was like, they don't deserve you. I said, oh, all that creative energy, all that life force that you have, that's supposed to be going into your book. That's supposed to be going into your podcast. You wanted to make this a priority because, yes, they're funding your rent right now, right? But this is not your livelihood. This is not your life's calling and purpose and destiny. And so I was like, I don't want us to be so talented and gifted and brilliant, and we're trying to force our brilliance onto people. You have to discern the containers where people are big enough and bad enough and bold enough, and for the spiritual girlies, God enough, right, to hold all of you. And if they're not seeing it, there's nothing that you can do to change that. All you can do is figure out, how can I navigate this space and dance with it so that by the time I, shut my laptop or clock out or leave the office, I'm not dragging myself home. Right? I want to hold myself so that I can step out of here like, here you go. This racism, sexism, homophobia, queerphobia, misogyny, misogynoir, this is not my shit. And I refuse to carry it out of here.
I had a mentor who's a Black woman and a CMO of a very large company that we all know. And one day I was complaining to her, and she looked at me and she said, when was the first time someone told you that you had to be 3 times as good to get what they have? And I was like, what does that have to do with the price in Tia We're not talking about that. Like, no, answer the question. And I told her, I said, I think my earliest memory of someone telling me that was I had to be 4 or 5 years old.
Wow.
And she said, what if, since you were 4 or 5 years old, you have been trained to give these people 3 times more in the name of survival? And she said, but what if you giving them half of a 1
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And no one ever gave me permission to think like that, right? And she looked at me and
Mm.
she said, Lexi, C's get degrees. And a lot of these people in these
Mm-hmm.
leadership spaces are given D minuses and making 4 times as much. And you're here
Woo.
complaining because you're giving over A plus. Has someone ever given you permission that C's get degrees?
Mm.
And I was
Well.
like, no. And it was one of the most transformative conversations I've ever had, because what she was saying is that give your A plus to your why.
Yes.
Do not give your A plus to your non-why. Or
Yeah.
if your why is somehow attached to a promotion or more money or this specific project, you can temporarily give your A plus to that. And that's totally okay.
Mm-hmm.
No one had told me that before.
Mm.
I
And
didn't
what
have
did that do for you?
Girl, freed up my whole life. Freed
Mm.
up my whole life. There was a situation, a job that I was at where I literally had a manager who were ready for this, refused to give me the promotion that I deserved
Uh-oh.
because he said, you need to study for this certificate.
Oh dear.
And I said, okay. So I went to finance and I was like, how much money am I going to make if I get
Mm-hmm.
this promo? And they gave me a number. And I said, okay, let me do some research on this certificate that I have to take a test for. And I did some research and I found out that it's going to be a lot of effort to pass this test. It's a very hard test for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember I looked at my boyfriend, now my husband at the time, and I said, the amount of money that I will get from this promo, in my opinion, does not equal the amount of energy it's going to take to pass this test. And he said, so what would you like to do? And I said, I would like to spend that energy doing something else. And he said, that is wonderful. And you will not get the promo. And I said, I'm just going to get a new job.
Well,
y'all, 6 months later. So what I did was I took that energy from that test that man wanted me to do. And I found a new job.
Hello.
That I enjoyed, that I loved the manager. And I will never forget my last day with this particular manager. And he tried to make a joke and he said, part of me thinks you went and got another role inside the company because you didn't want to take that test. And he laughed. And I looked at him through the video, y'all. It was a video chat. And I said, that was actually 100% of my inspiration. And I'll never forget that. And he was like, what do you mean? And I said, yeah, I decided when we had this conversation in May that I did not want to put in that effort and that I deserved the promotion regardless. And that I basically run this whole team in my sleep. And you know it.
Right.
And you gave me an option. And I said, and what you miscalculated was my alignment to capitalism. You thought that by you trying to dangle that carrot, that I would do what you want to do, but you miscalculated because it wasn't a carrot for me.
I'm not a horse.
It wasn't a carrot for me. I was like, oh, wait, whatever.
Yeah. That brings up two things for me. One is this issue of authority. So one of my dear sister friends, hip hop womanist scholar Ebony Janice Moore, she does a lot of work around Black women being the authority with our intellectual property, with our knowingness, our wisdom, our ancestral connections, right? That is not going to be seen as valuable knowledge or expertise in a westernized, colonized society. But that does not mean that we operate according to that lens. And so your inner knowing, your radical truth, your intuition, your sixth sense, your womanly wiles, whatever you want to call it, your clear audience, your clear cognizance, all of those gifts, like that exists within you for a reason. You are the authority. You don't need another degree. You don't need another certificate. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to tire you out so that you are drained. And so be mindful that you are the authority. Are there things that you can learn and practice? Yes. But don't let anybody ever try to tell you that you don't know what you know what you know. The second thing is that you said how you wanted to spend your energy. Energy is currency, right? Energy is an infinite source, but your capacity to expend energy is a finite resource. And so you have to be very intentional about who, what, where, right, is getting your energy.
Yeah. And I think it's important. I love that energy is a currency because it really is, especially when you look at like work and you look at love. right?
Mm-hmm.
As you know, girl, when we work, and we is just like people in capitalism, regardless of color, you are working not only when you're actually on the clock, you're working when you're off the clock and thinking about it. You're working on that Sunday evening as you do your skincare routine, which you should be doing with some like beautiful music and some woosah, but you're sitting there scrubbing your face like, I got to see these people tomorrow. Right?
Yeah.
You do it with the anxiety of Monday at 6 a.m.
Right.
when that clock is starting to turn and you're like, oh, I don't want to get up, right? It's a currency. And so my question to you is, how do we make sure that we are actually saving our currency for the most important parts of our life that we get to decide are the most important, that we get to prioritize?
I think this is, my bread and butter. Talking about sensuality is so key right here. So I believe that sensuality is a womanist spiritual practice. I think there's no safer, more liberated place to be for a Black woman or femme than to be in her body. And I'm not talking about in her brain, because we got these degrees. We're the fastest growing number of entrepreneurs. I think because we were conditioned to do it and be hyperachievers, right? But I also know that we have to honor that some of these experiences are traumatic. Some of us are living with PTSD, right? That dread that you feel, people call it like the Monday blues or whatever. Like when you're like, oh God, I have to go into this office. That's because this person is toxic. This environment is toxic. And so I think it's important to, one, reflect what lit you up as a child, right? And it could be anything from writing to ice skating. I don't care what it is, but invite more of that into your life. To things like The Artist Way by Julia Cameron, where she's like, even if you're a brain surgeon, right? Like you are a creator of some sort. And in my belief system, I believe that we are co-creators with the creator. How can you tap into your creativity? Because creativity is an affront to productivity. Productivity is tied to capitalism. Creativity is tied to liberation, right? Productivity says there's a due date, there's a deadline, it has to meet these metrics. Creativity says, what's in flow for me? What's on top for me? What am I feeling right now? And to take ownership of that in your life, even in all of your amazing education and careerness, right? But to say, what would bring me joy right now? What would light me up right now? Right? I want to go to Paris. Okay, you may not be able to go to Paris because you have a big presentation in a couple of days, but you can go to a cafe and get you a croissant. Okay, you can go get you a cafe au lait. You can put on some French music, right? Put on a beret and go about your business. So how can we invite joy into our lives? And then the last thing that I would say is learn how to say no without feeling
Talk
guilty.
about it. Boundaries are blessings. Talk about
learn how to say no without feeling guilty. Because we'll be like, oh, we'll see. I'll let you know, no. It took me a while, but now I can say no, that doesn't work for me. And if you are struggling with saying no, here are some ways that could work. Something like, I don't have the bandwidth for that right now. Another one that I used to use was, I'd love to, but I can't. But only say that if you really would love to. But don't. People were like, oh, can you come help me, shovel monkey feces? And you'd be like, I'd love to, but I can't. You would not love to. Like your body is listening to everything that you're saying, girl. Make sure that you are saying things that are in alignment with your highest desires.
And then I also want to add to that, knows that what I'm learning and practicing as well is that, and I only use this for things that I actually really care about. No, and I always tell people that no just doesn't have to be, no can be a complete sentence, no period. Yes. And that's a beautiful sentence.
And
but if you're having issues telling people that you love or that you genuinely care about no, I'm also practicing the no and. So no, I can't do that for you. But I do want to help you if you actually do want to help the person.
But that's no but.
No.
No and?
For me, it's no, I can't do that. And how about I come a little bit earlier to the function? So no, I cannot come to the function.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
How about I come a little bit earlier and I can maybe help you set up for a bit because I actually cannot make it. Or what I've been dealing with a lot with my family recently, because family is not chosen, where it's like, I can make it, but I don't want to be around that one person, but I'm so excited for you. So no, not going to that. because
Right.
I saw the guest list. All right.
Okay. I saw who all gonna be there.
But what I can do is, how about I roll through your crib tomorrow night, and then maybe we can like hang out, have girl time, and I can help you put the party favors together because I'm
That's
excited
sweet.
for you, right?
Yeah.
But I saw the guest list.
Right. Yeah. I get it. That depends on the person. It depends on the situation. I
Yeah.
also know that there are sometimes like people ask you to do things and it's just bubbling up inside of you. Like you feel it in your gut,
Oh
in your
wow.
chest, with your breath getting short. Like these are all cues that your body is trying to communicate with you. And something between our brain and our mouth and our codependency or our trauma, right? Like the people pleasing thing comes up, the wanting
Yeah.
to be liked, the wanting to be accepted. And so I'm for real. You start saying no, you start implementing boundaries, you gonna be selfish and self-centered and why you like this. And it's just like, hey babes, this is what we're doing. So you got to be okay with not being liked.
Whew, say that again. I think that we
You
live
got to be okay with not being liked.
and I think
Your
that we live in
words,
a
yeah.
society where we're taught not that. I remember
Mhm.
growing up, I went to this very small Montessori school, and I distinctly remember, even at 6, 7, 8 years old, we were required to invite everybody to our birthday.
Oh no.
And I
Mm-mm.
thought it was the weirdest thing. And it's funny because I remember my dad thought it was the weirdest thing, right?
Mhm.
But like everybody had to be invited to every birthday party, so nobody felt left out.
Oh my word.
So imagine growing up in that kind of environment and then
Mhm.
becoming an adult.
Right.
Girl.
Yeah. Yes, it's the social conditioning for me because the fact of the matter is the kids know they don't like each other. Kids like, he got cooties. Like, you know what I'm saying?
I
And
actually don't want to go to his birthday party. I don't want to go.
okay, and now you're forcing the parents to come. When I taught 8th grade English, it was at a very white Christian prep school in
Mhm,
Atlanta, Georgia.
mhm.
And those kids would be like, Miss Briggs, I require extra testing because I'm like, okay, babes, no worries. And then the mom would come in for a meeting. She'd be like, so E gets like whispering. I'm like, the baby done told me. You know what I'm saying? The kids don't care. The kids want to go, they don't want to go. The kids will tell you it's the parents who are playing according to these
Mhm.
game rules that somebody set up for them. I'm just like, we all out. Don't none of us want to be here.
See,
So
I
don't
tell
go
people
nowhere where you don't
often.
want to be as an
I
adult.
tell people
Yeah.
often that I'm just waiting for Angela to approve my Wakandian refugee package application.
I'm
Okay,
screaming.
I'm out. For the record, it has been in the tool in the system
Mm-hmm.
since a Black Panther 1 came out. So Angela Bassett, if you're listening, if you will ever listen,
Come on.
you need to stamp that.
All
Because
right.
me and my baby need to be up in Wakanda and be left alone.
Exactly. And left alone. And the thing is that we had Wakanda. Like Wakanda is a real thing. The thing that I
Yes.
love about being African
Mhm,
is that we have a whole cosmological belief system
mhm.
that supports everything about us, right? Like the idea of Sankofa, where we look back and reach back to get it, to know where we're going.
Mhm.
Afrofuturism being like, what is the world like with all Black bodies being free? Like they speak to each other across time and space. And so I love you for conjuring that because I was so not a Marvel girly. I was so not a comic strip girly, but I sobbed when those credits and all the stars started. I was in Oakland, California at Grand Lake Theater on a
That's where
Thursday
I
night.
saw it. It was the
Oh,
blackest
it
experience.
was the black. I mean, when
It's
Oakland,
the
California
blackest
popped up on the
experience.
screen,
See, I'm so
it
can
rocked
we have
it.
this real quick because people don't understand
Yes.
when Black and for the record, I'm not a Marvel girly and I'm not a
Yeah.
cartoon girly. But when Black
Yeah.
Panther came out,
Yeah.
I don't think there were more people excited as the Black
Right.
people in Oakland, California. Because for folks who
I
don't know,
mean,
Ryan Coogler, who's the
yes.
director, is from Oakland.
Yeah.
Michael
Mhm.
B. Jordan, who was Killmonger,
Mhm.
he played in Fruitvale Station, which is
Mhm.
literally down the street from my house. And so to
Literally.
watch such a visually stunning film of
Yes.
Blackness
Mm-hmm.
Black excellence as described as because you are Black, you are excellent. Not just because you are a president, but because you just exist in Blackness, you are excellent.
Sure.
And to see Oakland, California on that screen while at Grand Lake Theater, which is right in downtown Oakland, watching it, I sobbed. I was like, the people don't know. The people don't know the layers. They don't know the layers.
Yeah, one of my top 5 like favorite theater moments like in my life, probably number 1. But to add to your to add to your point, it wasn't just about being Black, it was about being African. Because growing up in a Caribbean neighborhood, you know, there were some people who were like, oh, I'm not Black, I'm Jamaican. I'm like, oh, babes, like the elitism, it's showing, right? The nationalism is cute, but like it's showing. And so for me, I saw Black people who had never worn a dashiki don their cotton polyester blend made in China dashiki, and I was like, it don't matter, you looked okay, because growing up being African was like an insult. You know, like people would use that as a pejorative term. And I'm like, now look at us. We're moving beyond just like an African aesthetic from like, you know, natural hair and like different prints and Ankara and stuff like that to like an African ethic, because that's what's really going to save us from this capitalist bullshit, is having a radical dedication to ancestors and to community and to nature. Like, that's what's going to free us.
And this is why every morning I look at my daughter, who's very young, so therefore she can't really, we're in the baby babble stage, and I say, how are your dreams and what ancestor did you meet last night? Every morning.
Lexa,
and again, I don't know if she understands yet, because again, we're still in baby babble, but it's a practice that I do, that I will continue to do, because I want her to really get connected at a very, very young age. You know,
I love that. I've heard stories of toddlers, maybe younger, being like, Nana's flying around, and they're like, there's no one there, but that baby sees that spirit, right? Or your own spiritual gifts and attunement. Like, I remember talking to my mom. This was probably the year I turned 39. She came to visit me in New Orleans, and we were standing in my kitchen in my 1-bedroom, 1-bath, you know, shotgun home, very New Orleanian. And I was telling her, I was like, yeah, I have these gifts where like I hear things, I sense things. She was like, oh yeah, when I was little, I used to see stuff. And I was
like, it took us 9 years to have this conversation.
You never told me nothing about that. Like, what are we doing? So I just feel like there's so much giftedness in African and indigenous wisdom. And sometimes we don't have space to really activate that and like really lean into that. So any moment you can grab for yourself that's away from the colonized capitalist bullshit, like sink into that, because that's going to be very life-giving too.
Yes, I love that. So reintroduce yourself to us. Who are you?
Babes, I am God, okay?
Yes!
I am an expression of the divine on the earth. I am a daughter. I am an auntie. I am a friend. I am a lover. I am love personified. And I just happen to show up in the world as a spiritual leader, a healer, an author, and a creator.
And Emmy Award winner, but you know.
And Emmy Award winner. I know. So one of my, you know, we talk about being delusional on social media, right? I'm like, I want to be an EGOT. I don't know how I'm gonna do it, but I already have the Emmy. So I'm like, let me get a Grammy, Oscar, and
we only have 3 more. We only have 3
more. 25% of the way there.
I'm here for it. I'm here for it. You better sit with Whoopi and John Legend. I'm here for it.
Okay, it's a new dream. And 𝐬𝐻UD, I think.
𝐬𝐻UD does have an EGOT, because, you know, I was, you know, social media is hilarious. I love the new generation. Some Gen X person put together a clip where they were like, it was a picture of 𝐬𝐻UD crying after she lost American Idol. And then it was like ... And then it was like 𝐬𝐻UD now.
Hello.
Don't let these people tell you what you can't do. Okay.
That part. I don't even remember who won instead of 𝐬𝐻UD that year.
Because no one cares.
Okay. No one cares.
Because wasn't like 2 years later she like got an Oscar for Dreamgirls? No one cares.
Right. Come on, Effie. It was like Beyonce had to put the hip hop rapping girls time for us to know who they lost against. And I still don't know. Can't remember.
And no one, but you know what? Blessings to the person who won, but no
blessings.
I don't know who that is.
No one cares.
No one cares.
Doom, 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 doom.
Exactly.
Yes.
Oh
my goodness.
For being
Thank
here.
you, Lexi.
Just being for who you are. everything.
Thank you, Lexi. I appreciate you so much. You're worthy, beloved.
We'll talk soon.